ready to hear some noise tonight. You're just seconds away from Let's Go Blues Radio.
No doubt about it, eh? You're listening to Kurt, Bill, and Jeff on Let's Go Blues Radio, the original St. Louis Blues hockey fan podcast. Take it away, boys.
Come on, St. Louis hockey fans, stand up and cheer. The Blues are back strong. This is our year. It's the Blues' turn now.
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah, it's the Blues' turn now. With that Al McKinnon slap shot, you know we can't lose. We are St. Louis, the home of the Blues. Come on, St. Louis. Come on, St. Louis. Come on, St. Louis.
Let's do that hockey.
Come on, St. Louis. All over the hockey universe, the note is the news. Everybody's digging on the St. Louis Blues.
Oh boy. Welcome to season 7, episode 23 of the original St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. We are live on Tuesday, November 20th, 2018. This is franchise episode number 156 all time. I'm your host, Kurt Price. My always trusty co-hosts are with me again, Bill Day and Jeff Ponder. To interact with us or the show on social media, follow us on Twitter, where most of our interaction takes place, at LGB Radio on Twitter. At Kurt Price is mine, at Billy Blue Notes is Bill's, and at J Ponder 94 is Jeff's. Also follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and the website is letsgoblues.com. Check out the letsgoblues.com shop and consider buying a reasonably priced shirt, mug, or sticker. All proceeds go back into the show. And I guess just really quick here, the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament took place last Saturday. Neither Jeff's team nor my team won in much of anything. So, but it was fun. Fun was had by all. My daughter won a few things in the raffle, which was fantastic, which she always seems to do. And I did win the bet that Jeff and I had going, the small little bet to see who could score the most points in the tournament. And Jeff had 1 goal, and I had a whopping 2 goals. And so we, in 5 games, I had 2 whopping points, and I kind of accepted the win with a tail between my legs. Kind of, it was very strange.
I'm echoing, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, we should have just done this right off the bat.
Yeah. Blame me.
Don't even ask Jeff a question before changing the setting.
There you go. Does that work?
That's probably better. It's much better. And you sound great, Kurt, by the way. You obviously have been practicing talking all day today.
Well, K-Billy super sounds of the 70s. That's what I'm shooting for. No, I actually have a sore throat thing going on here. So, and Mr. Blueshead has joined us in the YouTube chat, and he says I sound different. That's why.
There you go.
I'm making this voice for a while.
The Ponder tournament was great. Bill, it was great seeing you there. Wait a minute.
Sorry about that.
Dick. How did you beat my father?
Sorry. We had company coming into town, and they arrived 2 hours early, which completely shut out my window for getting out to St. Charles, since it takes me an hour one way. So,
as Michelle would say on Full House, how rude.
Yeah, well, I guess it's not St. Charles, but it is Queenie Park. Still an hour commute.
Oh yeah, it's
That's still a trek for you guys for sure. That's a long.
It's a hike.
I used to live about 2 minutes from there, and I've driven to Kurt's, and my lord, that is a long drive.
It is.
It was an excellent tournament. Thank you everybody for coming out who made it out. Congrats to Team Ragsdale and a couple listeners of the show on that team. Kurt, you and I could have done better. Next time.
Oh yeah, right.
Let's play on the same line, and then just barnstorm the entire tournament.
Well, maybe next time I won't have a few too many beers the night before. That was not a good idea.
Maybe next time I'll, lose 20 pounds. I don't know what my excuse was. But yeah, not a very good night of hockey for me, but overall, a lot of fun. So again, thank you everybody for coming out. We don't have an exact total that we raised yet, but I do know it was at least right on par with what we made last year. So as soon as I figure that out, I will tweet that out for anyone who cares. But Be the Match is also very grateful for the donations and for the amount of money people spent that night. So any of you listening who were there, thank you very much. And for those that participated and those that helped get everything going, again, thank you very much. It was a wonderful night.
The official beers of episode number 156. Bill, I'm sitting this one out. I will not be drinking a alcoholic beverage this evening, but I do have a beverage. But Bill, what you got?
I have Grand Noisseur from Brasserie du Ciel of Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
You can't not say that without your nose up in the air. You just can't.
I really can't. And I drink it with my pinky
Right.
extended.
Yeah, pinky's up.
It's how it works.
Okay.
No, it's I was reading up on the background of this. Grand Noisseur refers to, it's French for the Great Darkness. It refers to a very dark time in Quebec political history.
Okay.
So we're talking about a very dark time in blues history tonight.
It's a period, a dark period. Yes,
it is.
Yeah.
So it's appropriate for that reason. It was also very good. If you go to Montreal to see a blues game, take the trip. It's about a half-hour trip from downtown out to where the brewery is. Well worth it. Very excellent beer between Grand Noisseur and Péché Mortel, two of the best stouts that I have ever had. So, ringing endorsement.
Excellent. Jeff,
I wouldn't say that this is a dark time. A dark period I'll agree with, but what did Harvey Dent say? It's always darkest right before the dawn, right?
Yeah, we're still, as blues fans, we're still waiting for the dawn.
Let's hope the dawn is coming. But no, my beer is one of my favorites. A little bit of a celebratory beer, I guess, but just one that it's an everyday beer for me. Forehand single speed.
I thought you said Contact High.
No, Contact High is definitely one I love year round. But no, this one is kind of like my Bud Light. If I'm out at a restaurant, I see they have single speed. That's the thing I'm ordering. Like how a lot of St. Louisans would order Bud Light or Bud Select. It's just a good ale. For anyone who's never had it, I don't know, what does it taste like? I know you guys have probably had it before. I can't even think of what it tastes like, but it's good. It's a good beer, and I strongly recommend it if you like forehands.
The Chatterbox 1999 in the YouTube chat says my favorite beer is Stag Light. They make a Stag Light? I enjoy myself some Stag.
It's an abomination if they do.
I know they have made Stag Light in the past. I don't know if they currently do. Maybe they do. My beverage this evening is just
NyQuil.
Well, yeah. Among medications, it is just hot water and honey in a St. Louis Blues mug. So there's that.
That's about the consistency of the Blues play this year, right?
It really tastes pretty damn good, actually. The honey and the water, it feels good too. A beer would not be good for me right now. Not at all. I'd be pushing buttons and playing weird things on wouldn't work.
Now that sounds like a fun show.
Maybe next time. Today in Blues History, courtesy of the @STL Blues History Twitter account, November 20th, 2018. Today's dates. So November 20th, 1990. 6 people suffered smoke inhalation, including a 12-year-old boy celebrating his birthday. In a fire at the St. Louis Arena during a game between the St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets. So I do not recall that.
I don't recall that either.
And apparently it was they didn't tell the people in the stands, in the crowd, the game was going on. They didn't tell anyone that it was happening. And they said when the fire trucks arrived, they could see flames coming out of the side of the building. And when they got in, they decided not to alert anyone, and they put the fire out. And then they told everyone after the fact that there was a fire, which is kind of a weird thing to do.
How many fire codes does that break? You have a fire in a building filled with 17,000 people, and you don't evacuate the building.
Well, you're not supposed to yell theater in a crowded firehouse ever.
Okay. I think
That's-
how the saying.
That's what you do. You go into a firehouse
And you yell.
and you want to yell theater and then run out.
Can you imagine if that happened nowadays? How many lawsuits there would be?
Great in the post Great White world.
Oh man, too soon.
Oh,
So I don't know. I mean, there's not much on the agenda to talk about the show.
You just want to close it up?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll open it up for everybody to join us. After a disappointing last season, missing the playoffs, a 7-9-3 start to this season, including losing 4 of our last 5 and getting shut out in 3 of our last 4, most recently to the last place LA Kings in St. Louis. Bad losses to Minnesota, San Jose, Chicago, Winnipeg, Columbus, and sitting in 14th out of 15 teams in the West, the St. Louis Blues have finally fired head coach Mike Yeo. Thank God. It should have happened. I'm pissed. When I heard the news, I was just pissed because I'm like, this should have happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. This is ridiculous.
Yep.
Everyone's calling for this shit to happen, and now it's like, why wait so long? And then it does happen, and then I'm like, as a fan, as someone who follows the team very closely, like many of you do, you're like, what the hell took so long? That you could have maybe salvaged some points here, maybe, I don't know, but I mean, you weren't doing yourself any favors leaving Yeo in as coach. But I don't know, where were you when you got the news Yeo was fired?
So this was my thought, and I said this earlier this week. I think I might have even said it Sunday or Monday. My only thought with why the firing didn't happen was maybe there's a contract discussion with a current available coach. Obviously Quinville, Vigneault, those kind of guys come to mind. So I thought, okay, maybe they're working out a contract. You don't want to fire the guy, bring in an interim, and then the next game or 2 games from then, you got a new head coach already. That would just be confusing. So I thought, okay, that's what it is. But then they fire Mike Yeo at the end of the game last night, and Craig Berube has been given the interim tag, which is fine. That's something, I mean, again, Kurt, we all called for it weeks and weeks and weeks ago. And it's something that I said, and again, I know you guys have said this too. You knew, I'm sorry, I don't care what Doug Armstrong says. If anybody were to ask him this question, you knew a month ago that at some point this season, you're probably going to have to fire Mike Yeo. So why wait? Just do it. Get it out of the way. Like you said, salvage some points. I know that it's forever pessimistic of being a Blues fan, because we got what we wanted. We should be celebrating, like I said. I mean, I kind of am. But like you, Kurt, I'm pissed off too. Why? What took so long? You knew this was going to happen. And I said this last night before the firing happened. The longer Armstrong waits, the longer leash he gives Yeo, the shorter his leash becomes. And I think even though he's signed that contract extension last year, he's looking at a pretty short leash as GM of this team.
I agree. I think, and from STL Blues History Twitter account again, he tweeted out today, the St. Louis Blues have been shut out 11 times since November 2nd, 2017. So that's a little over a year. That's tied with Montreal for the most times being shut out over that span. So just a list of things you could just rattle off down the line as far as like how the team has performed and reasons as to why Yeo should be fired. And that's kind of a glaring one right there. You just don't. And last season, when goal scoring was a problem, this season it wasn't until recently, last 4 or 5 games. So it's just the inconsistent roller coaster of crap that we've had to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, what was my immediate reaction? Texting you guys both about fucking time. we're all in this, we were all on the same page about, I think a month ago, Jeff, you hit that on the head, and why wait? And I think we got a lot of the answers, I think not directly, but you read between the lines and what Armstrong said in the press conference today. You get a lot of those answers, and, he was hesitant to pull the trigger because he liked Mike Yeo. He was a friend. And, the mediocre success from the last homestand bought him another road trip.
Which if you're that close to being fired, come on, just pull the trigger already.
Well, that friend crap that we hear about too, it almost makes you, and I'm saying this man's a dinosaur, something just flew across Kurt's screen there.
It was a child.
My son was wanting to play the arcade, and
Was-
I'm like, "Hey, wait till we're done, bud."
Was it Mike Yeo? You got him stored in your basement?
Yo's in the other room, consoling himself.
Yeah. He really just wants to come in and play some Galaga.
Yeah, a lot of free time now.
What video game music would make this show peppier? We could get Cooper to come in here and just play Donkey Kong or something.
Donkey Kong. For some reason, the Qbert theme song would be appropriate for this show. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Go firing of Yo.
And bringing in Coach Q.
Yeah,
that's
amazing.
Qbert. Yeah.
there you go.
I like that, Coach Qbert.
Coach
Yeah.
Qbert. Hey, that's a Photoshop from Mr. Blues Hat waiting to happen.
There it is, right there.
So
Rising to the top, on that disc, that.
Yeah.
On top of Blues Mountain with all the players' faces on. Oh,
Yeah.
you're welcome, Mr. Blues Hat. You're welcome.
Well, anyway, I was going to say that to finish my thought, as much as I don't like the man, it makes you kind of respect Lou Lamoriello. You look at a guy like him who is just, hey, this isn't working. I'm going to fire the coach. I don't care if I have to coach, if I get one of my assistants to do it. And listen, I'm not a fan of Lamoriello, but you look at Armstrong, he's waiting way too long to fire these guys. And it's annoying because it's, again, like Kurt said, you could have possibly picked up some points the last couple of weeks. I mean, I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but across sports, we see teams fire their coach and just go on a tear. What if this was 2 weeks ago? All of a sudden, the Blues are probably back in the playoff picture at this point.
The St. Louis Blues home attendance over the past 4 seasons with crowds under 17,000. The number, this was also tweeted out by the STL Blues history account. 2015-16, 5 crowds under 17,000. 16-17, 1 crowd. 17-18, 2 crowds. So far this season in 12 home games, 18-19 season, 6. So attendance is dropping.
Right. And much props to the STL Blues history Twitter account for validating everyone. I mean, he's a man who brings the numbers to support the feelings that we all have.
Yes. I mean, it's not just performance on the ice. The fans are making it. No, they're not showing up as much.
Right. And I think that was the kind of the idea behind some of Armstrong's comments in the presser today about the fans being blue collar, and it takes a commitment from the fans, and they're not willing to give it because the product on the ice is shit.
Yeah.
And I know Mr. Blues Hat has feelings about the product in the building. It's also shit. I've not yet gone to a game this year, so I will defer to his season ticket holder expertise. But
I've been to a couple, and he's spot on. Well, we've had the discussion on Twitter. It's the in-game, which we talked about before.
Right. And at the end of the day, people go to see hockey games.
Yes. I mean, I think a lot can be forgiven if it's a winning team on the ice. But when you're losing, then you're already in a bad mood. And then all of a sudden, if the in-game entertainment is kind of shitty, it's like, well, God damn it. So,
woo!
Oh, shut up.
Sorry.
Don't even.
Delete that.
Yeah, please remove that from the podcast so our faithful listeners don't have to hear that. The home attendance thing bothered me. We were at the game, the San Jose game, and it was amazing. We looked around and it just how many empty seats there were. And it's again, I mean, I know the team's bad, but we've had a couple rough starts here and there. And a team like San Jose, who's got a ton of star power, comes into town. Plus, there's a little bit of a rivalry there in terms of the cities, I think, not the teams anymore. But, people still look at San Jose, I think, as someone who is kind of a rival of the team. And there are so many empty seats. And then we brought up a couple weeks ago the Saturday Blackhawks game, how it was right around 17,000 was the attendance. That's crazy. For a Blues Blackhawks game, that should at least be close to a sellout. And again, that's tickets sold. That's not even how many people showed up, which give or take 1,000 there. So you're talking 2,000 empty seats for a big rivalry game, even though the Blackhawks aren't what they used to be. It's still a game that sold out almost there. I think it sold out every game last year. And all of a sudden we're not seeing it. And it's maybe it's in-game entertainment, but like Bill said, people are going to see hockey. And people don't like this hockey. I mean, part of it was the expectations coming into the year, but this has been a bad team to watch. And we have beat the dead horse enough that is Mike Yeo on how bad decisions he's made, the awful strategy that we saw from this team that really kind of took away any speed out of the offense. So yeah, maybe things change now. Maybe this alone gives a little bump to attendance. We'll see. But yeah, it's definitely, it was concerning for me, and I'm just a fan, a podcaster. You got to think Tom Stillman's there ripping his hair out, thinking, what the hell do I got to do to get people in the building?
They still charge more for games against the Blackhawks, right?
I think so.
They charge more for Saturday, for weekend games, and for premium games, which are like division rivals, like Blackhawks. And
right.
So if you're not selling out,
dynamic pricing, I think it's called.
Okay, whatever, how they want to spin it to charge more money. But I mean, that's a hard sell if you can't sell out a game against the Hawks.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
right.
Granted, the Hawks aren't having a great year, and the Blues are down, but still, I mean, it shouldn't.
That was a Saturday night game too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's insanity.
I know.
I mean, shit. Even in when the Hawks were featuring Tyler Arneson as their top line player, those games sold out.
Yeo finishes. We've talked about this briefly before, but we'll update it. Yeo's finishes during full initial seasons that he has coached, and they've all been in the Central. 11-12, he finished 4th. 13-14, finished 4th. 14-15, finished 4th. 17-18, finished 5th. And this season, when he was fired, they're 7th. So that's his coach. In full seasons.
Kurt, you've said this multiple times. Why was he? What has he done to earn such a leash? I mean, I called for it. I mean, I didn't like him going into the season personally, but you can't fire a guy right before the season starts. But the Blue Jackets game a couple weeks ago when they just got trounced, was it 7-4, 7-3, whatever it was?
I think it was 7-3.
Why don't you make that change then? I mean, that was a debacle of a hockey game. Again, he was out-coached, outmatched in every aspect of that game. Now, granted, John Tortorella is one of the better coaches in the league, some would argue at this point. But he was completely out-coached. And they just sat on him for as long as they could. And it's just mind-boggling. Again, maybe it's a financial thing because you still have to pay your coach after you fire him. Maybe it's, again, what the friend thing with Armstrong. Maybe it's Armstrong trying to hold the players accountable, which I agree with to a certain extent. But when you're watching the game and when you're seeing what he's done in the past with Minnesota's pretty good teams and then with Blues teams in the past, there's no reason to hold on to this guy as long as they did and expect anything that what he's already output with his past teams.
I was going to say another possible reason for the delay is Armstrong having to admit that he was wrong. He took a gamble. Like it's unheard of to hire a coach in waiting in professional sports, and it was a gamble. And I have to imagine that there's some amount of pride that he has to swallow, and maybe it contributed.
I mean, I've said this a number of times on the show. And I think when Yeo was first hired, I texted you. I was at Dauphin Island on vacation, and I got the news that Yeo was hired. I think it was where I was. No, I was there when Oshie got traded.
Right.
But when Yeo was hired, I texted you and I said, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at the time. I have not liked it almost any point since. I mean, yeah, they got off to a nice start when he took over to finish the season, got us in the playoffs and won a round. Right. But so I'm like, okay, well, if you're gonna win, that's great. I was wrong. But the start of the next season was great, and then it just the wheels came off the cart, and it just was awful. So
right, and you bring him in, you hope that this is an experiment that he is going to be able to learn from Ken Hitchcock, who has this reputation, even though he's only won one Stanley Cup and it was 19 fucking years ago, that he is a great hockey mind and knows how players operate, on a a psychological level. And obviously that didn't happen. So it's the experiment failed. I don't know. What do you guys think Yeo gets another head coaching gig?
No.
Not for a long time, if at all. If he does, he'd have to be like an assistant coach for a while first.
Yeah.
You mean at the NHL level or any head coaching job?
NHL level.
No, I don't think so.
And that was my initial thought. But then after seeing what happened with Hitchcock getting hired back in Edmonton today, NHL GMs are fucking idiots who will retread any tire before they try something new. Yeo will get it. And I think where he can be effective if he gets a 1-year deal to finish out a season, like if he's the guy that's coming in to replace himself right now, he could probably get something out of a team. But he obviously doesn't have a message that resonates for a long period of time.
The difference between Hitchcock and Yeo, though, is Hitchcock, I mean, yeah, it was a long time ago that he won a cup, but he still has that cup. And he did have a lot of success here with St. Louis, just not in the playoffs, except for the one season. Got to the conference finals. Right. I mean, so he does have that going for him. Yeo has absolutely nothing going in his nothing.
Abject playoff failure.
Yeah, and he's never finished higher than 4th in the division.
Abject regular season failure.
So,
right.
And let's see what then the YouTube chat Yeo equals mini Hitch. We talked about the coach in waiting, and Armstrong addressed that in the press conference today. He said that the reason why that was done that way was because and they have it on the TV right now. That was to try and make the transition as easy as possible to continue that winning brand, that Hitchcock had as far as regular season success went anyway. But it was addressed that the players have changed. I mean right away Backus and Brouwer left. Backus left and then Brouwer left. So Brouwer's gone, and then
same offseason. And
then today, right, and then this year, half the forward core is different.
Right.
So it's not. You can't just, if you're going to change coaches and then make tweaks to the roster, you're not really saying, well, you got the exact same team either. So
yeah, and that's something that's kind of a few on social media have been vocal about that. We've talked about how almost everyone is united with Yeo being fired, but I have seen some people say it's time we hold the players accountable. I think they have. And I think you guys, that's kind of a roundabout way that you just said it, Kurt, is that they made changes. I mean, listen, I'm not an Armstrong fan, and I'll be first to tell you that I think he needs to go. But at the same time, he did a lot this summer. He got rid of Laterra 2 years ago. He's gotten rid of Berglund and Saboka. And he's made moves. And you think about, somebody said this is the third coach that this squad has seen. Yeah. That's not really true. That's Alexander Steen, right? Is that the only guy remaining from when Davis Payne was around?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Backus is gone, Oshie's gone, Berglund's gone.
Yeah.
Perron was here, but he left and came back and then left and came back.
Right.
So all three.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Perron, I guess. But at the
Perron
same
was here
time,
for Murray, too. Perron was here for the last 4.
Right.
That's true.
That's what made Perron infamous, was the Andy Murray.
Yeah, the white skates. Yeah, white
Yep.
skates. I hated that. I said, fuck you, Murray.
So on that, you talk about how you've seen, some fans on social media talking about hold the players accountable. I found it, and maybe this is just my perception, and I was tuning everything out, waiting for Yeo to be fired. But the second that it went down, it seemed like Blues Twitter divided, like there was a vacuum that was created, and Blues Twitter divided between the, now it's Armstrong, we got the pitchforks out, let's go get Armstrong, and the other half was, it's the fucking players. It was amazing to me that there was such a quick divide. At least that was my perception. Did you guys feel that?
You want to take it, Jeff?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess I did. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to disagree with Bill ever, but no,
I think arguments can be made for both sides. That's the most intriguing thing about it.
Right.
Is Armstrong Armstrong is the architect for all of this.
Mhm.
All of this failed. I
Right.
mean, like you said, Jeff, he has the last couple off seasons, I think, have been his best. But we're just oddly enough, we're not getting the results this season for various reasons on the ice or behind the bench or whatever. And the players, I mean, who knows? They always talk about the players that, oh, well, so-and-so, this core group of guys, they quit on a coach or they not playing for this coach. Curbs was interviewed on the radio today, and he said he can count on 2 fingers the amount of times that he's seen a player not, that he could maybe say quit on his coach. And he goes, because that's like the ultimate insult to a player. And I would agree with that. And I think a lot can be said for that. I think it's more on the lines of players like during the Hitchcock era not buying in or not grasping the whole concept or not being able to grasp it or refusing to grasp it and thinking their way's better. I don't think that's quitting on the coach necessarily. I guess it could be defined that way, but quitting on a coach implies the player's out there just skating around in circles and doesn't really give a shit, which I think we can all agree that doesn't happen. But even in the loss to LA, I mean, I'm watching the condensed game just before the show, and I'm like, the guys are diving around. They're really fucking trying to score some goals, and it's just not going in.
You look at the Tarasenko play against the Blackhawks with the empty net. Patrick Kane's taking a slap shot. We all know he's got a hard shot. Tarasenko's trying to play goalie and block it. I mean, if you're quote unquote quitting on your coach, you're not trying to block a shot there. You're just saying, okay, go ahead and score because we want to lose and get this guy fired.
That would have been a perfect spot for him to just wave at it with a stick.
Yep.
But he got his arm, his glove on it or something, and that was after he got a tooth knocked out with a high stick.
Yep.
Yeah. Something tells me though at that point he was high on the adrenaline of I got my tooth knocked out.
Nothing to lose now.
Right. I don't know. His effort that game was stellar. The rest of the team not so much. So I want to talk a little bit about, this was kind of related to my previous thought about dividing the team or the fan base between the going after the players and going after the GM. What did you guys think of the Parayko minute and a half left? They catch him on camera,
laughing. Yeah, down by one.
And half of it seemed again, half of Blues Twitter, and this is where I'm getting it from. Half of Blues Twitter wanted to run him out of town.
Yeah, well, that's probably the same half that wanted him out of town anyway.
Right.
Are you looking at YouTube there, Bill?
Yeah, because Chatterbox, which is Toast, by the way, Toast Dispatch. If you
that's Toast.
Yeah.
No, I do not have. Kurt's got the access to the YouTube chat.
He just asked to talk about the Parayko incident. So
literally 20 seconds before you said that. That's amazing, Bill. You're some kind of monster.
Bill's phone's like playing a game. I'm like, what's going on?
It just showed an NFL highlight. That's the last thing I would ever click on.
And you look at me like, what's going on? Like, it's not me. Your
hell?
Phone's like blaring something.
How did the NFL get onto my Twitter? I don't get that.
God damn it, Bill.
Yeah. So okay. As far as Parayko goes, I can see where people will be upset about it. Personally, and you guys may disagree with this, and fine if you do, just please say so. I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, would I rather a guy be emotionally pissed and upset and breaking sticks? I'd love for Parayko to be the badass, pissed off, tough to play against defenseman in front of his own goal, but he's just not that kind of player. I think it's a. I don't know. I see both sides of it, but personally, I don't really care. I mean, as long as his play on the ice doesn't reflect that ambivalence on the bench, I don't care.
See, this right here is why radio is better than podcasts, because they make the co-host say, all right, you're going to take this side and you're going to take this side. We don't do that here because we're all going to agree on this, I think. Bill, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. I'm not going to be contrarian because I don't know, maybe it's a playing the game thing, because yeah, there are times when we're losing. And again, I'm not playing NHL level, but we're losing and I'm pissed off. You know, we give up a big lead and I'm pissed off. But then there are other times where we're losing and it's just kind of like, the fuck are you going to do? We've thrown everything we can at the net. Our goalie's made every save. We're not going to win this game. It's just not in the cards. Fuck it. Don't let it ruin your night. You know, granted, again, that's men's league, but I look at what he did. I mean, you could put a camera on any player in the league and you could watch their face, the reaction to other teams' goals, to penalties, and you're going to look at that and you're going to, under a microscope, say, that's not the reaction he should have. And I wanted to be mad. When somebody pointed that out, I wanted to be mad and be like, God damn it, Parayko, take this game seriously. The fan in me wanted that. But then I thought, man, everyone does it. We all do it. Just, you know, you see that in everyone. I remember last year, I think it was Chicago. There was a game where they were down by a fair amount, and Patrick Kane was laughing on the bench, and Blackhawks fans lost their minds. Like, why is he laughing? Because this is his job. You ever had a bad day at your job, and you just laugh it off because it's just, well, there's nothing I can do. It's just going to be a shitty day today.
Here's the deal.
It happens.
Here's the deal. We're the outrage is coming from a still shot or a video of him laughing, and people have no idea what the context is either.
Right.
They don't know if it was part of a game plan that was mentioned to Parayko, and he was like, okay, we'll see if this works or whatever. I don't know. Or was it a comment about from Steen to Parayko that says, hey, just check out the chick in the third row, and it's like
it could be a chirp.
It could be a chirp. It could have been a chirp. It could have been It could have been looking at somebody. I don't know.
Very easily.
Context is important there, I think. However, if his ambivalent, he acted ambivalent. I guess that's what people are talking about to the situation at hand. I don't care if his play on the ice reflects that. Then, like I said earlier, then that's a different story. If he's joking around and not playing his ass off on the ice, that's completely different. But
if he's making a pass from his sideboards into the center of the slot with 4 seconds to go against Montreal,
right? Yeah.
Well, it's totally different.
Well, that was not. Yeah. Well, and Toast is digging in. He says 1 minute left in the game and the ship is sinking. That is the context. No, you don't know what was said to him.
Right.
You don't know if it was part of the game plan. If Yeo said something funny about taking someone's head off on the other team, you don't know. I mean, it could have been anything.
Or if Yeo said, "Glad I packed my boxes in my office last night."
Yeah. So I mean, we don't. Again, I don't see that ambivalence on the ice from Parayko.
Well, adrenaline's a funny thing too, because again, I think about times where I've taken a penalty and I'm pissed off. Like, are you kidding me? That's a bad call. But then I get to the box, and the way it works in men's league is usually the box is right next to the player's bench, and somebody will say something to me. Oh, Ponder, nice job doing this. And it makes me laugh. How do you not know that the 10 seconds before that, he was pissed off and one of his teammates or Yo or whoever said something to him to get him to calm down and cool down? We don't know. You don't know what the situation was.
It could have been a calm down situation, Bill.
It could have been. It could have been. No, I totally think that context is key. It's a bad moment, but it was something for people to grasp onto. Yeah. And to say the players are a problem too.
I understand how it can look. I get it. I mean, it makes complete sense to me that it doesn't look good, but I think to throw daggers out of your eyes at Parayko and call for his benching or healthy scratching or trading, or just because you see that when you have no idea what was said, what context it came from, that's a little harsh. So
hey, real quick, we need to make a correction. Petro was a part of the Hitchcock team as well.
I was gonna mention
or
that.
the Payne team. Sorry.
Okay.
Rookie year.
I think so.
What was it, like his 9 games?
I can't remember, but I think that's correct. I remember being mad that Davis Payne sent him down 1 year and then he kept him up the next year. So I do know that he was at least a rookie when Payne was his coach.
Chatterbox 1999 in the YouTube chat, which is Toast, by the way, Toast Dispatch, mentioned was talking a little bit ago about Allen. Yeo was not the problem. Allen is the problem, and he's been all about that on Twitter a lot. But 7 wins in regulation in like the last 47 games played or something.
Right.
So and during Yeo's tenure as head coach of the Blues, Jake Allen's save percentage was .913. And this is from STL Blues history. Carter Hutton and Chad Johnson combined have a save percentage of .932. The Blues team save percentage is .919. We're 26th least in shots against, and Allen had the 25th lowest save percentage, 50 games minimum in the NHL during Mike Yeo's tenure. So,
yeah, I mean, again, I think that this goes back to you can't point fingers at one guy for a goal. Alex Pietrangelo turns the puck over, sure, but Jake Allen still needs to make that save. I think that's a microcosm of what we're talking about here. I think two things can exist together. I think Mike Yeo's strategy did not work with this team especially, but overall in the NHL, I don't think it works anymore. And Jake Allen is not the type of goalie that can bail out his team night in and night out, which I think, even if you're an Allen supporter, you have to at least see that he's not a guy that's going to bail out his team every night.
We should, and we've been highly critical of Allen, rightfully so, on the show. But to give him credit, he's played very well lately.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Well, so the goaltending thing, you cannot pin the goaltending problems on Mike Yeo. The goaltending problems with this organization are squarely on Doug Armstrong. He has made every wrong goaltending decision, from the 5%, thank you, Art Lippo, move to bring in Ryan Miller, to not giving Yarrow Halak, a.k.a. Toast Dispatch,
right.
Nick Senior.
Nick Senior.
You're welcome, Nick. His fair shot at starting in a playoff series when that's the whole fucking reason you brought him to town in the first place, to taking offense to Brian Elliott saying, "Tell me I'm number one," and then trading him in favor of Jake Allen, who hadn't won shit.
Yeah.
The goaltending issue is Doug Armstrong's legacy with this team. His inability to understand and put the right goaltender in the right situation, except Brian Elliott in the run up to the conference finals, and then his inability to retain him. That is his legacy. He's made every wrong goaltending decision. That is not on Mike Yeo. That is on Doug Armstrong squarely.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear too when Jake Allen signs that contract and Carter Hutton's at the end of his tenure. You can't. It's a tough situation for a head coach, because you can't say at the end of last year, "Okay, Carter Hutton, you're starting the big games for us. We're going to play you in the last game of the season, a game that if we win, we get into the playoffs." That's a tough decision to make, because you're looking at it at the numbers purely. Your number one going into next year is going to be Jake Allen because of that contract. Carter Hutton is a free agent. So you piss off Carter Hutton, who cares? He's not your problem next year. You piss off Jake Allen, you got to deal with that in your locker room, and that can be a toxic situation. So, yeah, because of these horrible decisions Doug Armstrong has made a net, it causes the head coach to have quite a number of issues every season.
Mr. Blues had said the Blues don't trust Allen, and I think if to simplify it down to its bare bones, I think that plays a lot into
the players.
Yeah, the players
do not.
The
trust
players
Allen.
do not trust Allen, and that
whereas the GM and the coaches trust him too much.
yeah, I don't get that. Which really, I mean, it's hard to argue against that point because of how the backups have played during Allen's tenure here. He seems to always get outplayed or lose the number one job to his backup. So, and that could be partially due to the play in front of him, which is a vicious circle. If you don't play well, the team is not going to trust you, and they're not going to play as well, which will in turn lead to more goals in your own net, which is just bad, just a vicious bad cycle. So Berube takes over as the interim head coach. He coached Philly in the 13-14 season and 14-15 seasons. Finished 3rd and 6th in those 2 seasons with a record of 75, 58, and 28. Lost his only playoff series in 7 games in 13-14 season to the Rangers, who went on to the finals that season, losing to LA. Armstrong said he's in tune with today's game and he's in tune with today's players, which I would say that any GM that hires any coach nowadays would probably say the same thing about the coach they hired.
Yeah.
It's a very generic rah-rah, the guy just hired comment. So,
well, I think it's a decent move for the Blues. I mean, we talked about this before. Just let go of Yeo, give the intern tag to Berube. That's just the best option that you have that you can definitely do, and you don't have to worry about going out and find a head coach right away. But because he does have head coaching experience, he was the Flyers head coach. He's obviously been trusted before to be given a team and run with it. But I think we've all said this on the show at separate times that he's not the answer. He's not your long-term answer. And I do think that's my biggest fear now. The Blues are going to go on a tear, just like we saw. And I think Mike Schilt is a wonderful manager, as far as I can tell, with the Cardinals. But I think you see a lot of that in today's sports. These teams go on a run after a coach firing, and it's because of the new guy. No, it's because there's a different voice. It has nothing to do with partially has nothing to do with the change in voice, the new voice. It's the fact that you made a change to bring in a new voice and to say, hey, nobody's job is safe. So again, maybe Craig Berube turns out to be that guy, but that's my fear. I don't want them to go on a run and then them sign Berube to a head coaching deal and then they falter at the end of the year, like we saw with Mike Yeo.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a weird dynamic to be in. You want the team to do well and win and to get back into the playoff race, which is a weird thing to say. Not even 20 games into the season, but this is where we are, unfortunately. But I'm also torn with the fact that I don't want them to do well, where they just make him permanent head coach, and I think that's a rash decision. Maybe, I mean, we don't know, but maybe, especially when, I mean, granted, as long as they do the due diligence with trying to find, if they have more better, more better coaches, if they have more better coaches on their list, which I'm sure they do. That's not a knock on Berube. It's just a knock of it's just who's out there. Which we can talk about in a few minutes. I think in like a month or two to hear that they've given Berube like a 2-year contract would be like, oh, really?
Right.
So
right. It would be the most Doug Armstrong thing in the world for Berube to come in and get a 5-game winning streak and then, a game loss and then go 500 and be like, okay, he's our guy. My work is done.
This is the Blues' 5th head coach since the 2011-2012 season. Murray, Payne, Hitchcock, Yeo, and now Berube. Only 9 players have more than 3,000 career penalty minutes, and only 2 of those players have been an NHL head coach. Berube is one of those players. This is all from the STL Blues History Tour account, too. So good stuff today from him. And this is the 26th man behind the bench in charge for the St. Louis Blues. Most for any 1967 expansion team. Philadelphia 19, Pittsburgh 22, Minnesota, Dallas 23, and the Kings 25. So we've had basically all our coaches have averaged about 2 years a pop.
About.
Yeah.
the Ken Hitchcock era seemed like it lasted an eternity. To me, it lasted 4 years too long. But
early on in the Blues history, they had a lot of coaches.
right.
I mean, that settled
They
down
turned it over
in like the
you know,
80s. That settled down.
Yeah, turned it
80s,
over
90s.
with Scotty Bowman went right to Montreal after one season here. It was a very short tenure here, and then he went to Montreal, and then Davis Payne was what was it
A
9
season?
games?
No, it was. He was a
right.
season
He
plus.
replaced the
Davis Payne coached more games than Yeo.
Oh.
That's I heard. I read that.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, not many more, but. Yeah. So and I remember having the conversation with Jeff at the time that Payne was fired. It was like Payne wasn't doing a bad job.
No, it was just that Ken Hitchcock became available.
Yeah, which which I respect the fact that Armstrong did that at the time. I mean, Payne wasn't coaching poorly, but he saw a better option available that he thought was better, and he did it. He moved on it, so he is capable of moving on a better option if you think it's out there.
Well, you got to figure it. Payne wasn't his guy, right? Wasn't that
that was
a blow hire?
Yeah.
And so he wanted his,
but he fired. Wanted, oh,
I
got you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, he brought in his guy, which was Hitchcock, and he flat out said multiple times that was his best friend. Brought in another Dallas Stars guy from his days with the Stars, and that's why he brought in Hitchcock. And yeah, I remember Kurt. I mean, if you folks want to go back, you might be able to find that episode where Kurt and I discuss the firing of Davis Payne. That's how long this show goes back. But yeah, it's he's shown he's capable of it, and that's why again, not to beat the dead horse here. What took you so long this time? I mean, how it wasn't even a month into the season, right? With Davis Payne, I think you had the numbers here, Kurt.
Yeah, he was like around the same record. It was a couple games more, I think, than Yeo. I think.
Yeah, I know you sent them to us earlier, but yeah, it's like, come on, where was this move months ago? I mean, a month ago. They always say that, well, Doug Armstrong isn't going to sit on his hands. That's what you always hear. Doug Armstrong's he's the type of GM that's going to pull the trigger rather than sit on his hands. Sorry, he's been sitting on his hands for the last couple weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, my impression with the Davis Payne firing was, that you hit it on the head, Kurt, that he was bringing in his guy in Hitchcock. But I thought Payne deserved a longer leash than he got, and he deserved a much longer leash than Yeo got.
Oh, much, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he got. Well, yeah, I guess so.
No, I think so because you look at the year before. Davis Payne that was the year they had those monstrosity amount of injuries. Matt D'Agostini was playing the top line, for Christ's sake, and they were good. I mean, they weren't great, but they were at a point where it was, wow, he's kind of getting blood out of the stone here. And that's why I thought the next year, this guy's he's not getting the axe anytime soon. It was simply because Ken Hitchcock was available. There were the rumors at the time, for those that remember, Hitchcock was working for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was going to take a head coaching job there as soon as they fired, I don't remember who it was, somebody. But then the Blues kind of swooped in and took him. And it's, again, because of the relationship he has with Armstrong. So, yeah, Davis Payne, first year as a head coach in the NHL, I think that deserves a much longer leash than a guy who has done nothing but fail behind the bench in the NHL.
Ken Hitchcock, 45 seconds in his first game as Noah's coach, is losing. 1-0.
Gave up a rebound. The goalie finished goalie wearing number 19. I brought this up after our show last week. You don't see that. Goalies wearing 19 in the NHL. And I don't think you're going to see it long with that kind of performance. That was a bad rebound.
Yeah, rebound. Donskoy scores in front on the backhander.
Is Ken Hitchcock? Are they showing him right now with his arms folded?
They didn't show him at all.
Yeah, they didn't show him at all.
It's kind of shocking.
He was dusting off the fuck me.
This is the NBCSN broadcast. You think they would have showed him? Oh Braden Shen on Berube because Shen played under Berube in Philadelphia. I've had him before in Philly, and players respect him a lot. Guys love him around the locker room. Guys are going to play hard for him. I expect no different here than it was in Philly. Even though they finished 3rd and 6th under him in Philly.
Yeah.
So, 9-time Cup winner Larry Robinson will join the St. Louis Blues coaching staff in the short term.
Big Bird.
So he's no longer
a consultant, a
semi
consultant.
Yeah, he was like gathering sticks for players the other day. That video of him like putting sticks away. That's kind of weird.
Very bizarre.
I was kind of shocked that he wasn't the guy, but I mean, I guess you're kind of looking at it as Berube was the associate coach, so it's kind of a slap in the face if he's not the next guy in line to at least get the interim tag. But man, I don't know. Larry Robinson's had some success in the NHL. He's a defensive-minded guy who the Blues really could use right now with the defensive woes we've seen for most of the season, not lately. But I don't know. I was kind of rooting for that, but again, I don't think that's really an option when you have an associate coach kind of waiting to take over as soon as the first guy goes.
I was surprised by the ringing endorsement that Armstrong gave Mike Van Ryn in the presser today. He said he's super excited about Van Ryn and Otter as the as coaches. They have great potential, but they're too young. So we felt like we had to bring in Larry Robinson, who is, an historical figure in the NHL.
Thank you for saying that correctly.
The Armstrong press conference today said a lot of some interesting things. The company line, we're not good enough. Well, no shit. But as the general manager, the wins and losses fall in hockey operations, he said, and as the president of hockey operations and general manager of the team, there's things that need to be addressed. No joke. He said Mike Yeo is paying for the sins of myself and the entire organization.
How many times did he say that?
Yeah, a lot.
It was right. That was his practiced line.
Yeah, that was something he rehearsed. I think.
Yeah,
they've written down.
Anybody that's prepared for a presentation knows you've got those go-to lines.
He said we don't play competitively enough to draw penalties. And Army on the players, it's very disappointing when work ethic is something that they question about themselves, which that's a good point. I mean, all the comments you hear after games all the time is we got to work hard or we're not work hard enough. Tarasenko said after the LA game, maybe we're trying too hard. So they don't know what the fuck's going on.
Right. And players are definitely not on the same fucking page. And apparently from this press conference, the coach and the GM were not on the same page about player usage, because you could directly connect a lot of the quotes about misusing players to Jay Bouwmeester. And why the fuck is that guy in the lineup? I think the one comment was you don't play the players because of what they make. You play them because of what they do.
Right.
Something to that effect, which is pretty much what we said last week about why Jay Bouwmeester should not be in the lineup for this team.
And he also said the team's highs are too high and the lows are too low.
Right.
And they're too emotional.
Right. The great teams, the highs are high and the lows are high. And the Blues don't have that.
And which we'll look back at the Parayko moment, laughing on camera. Do you want the guy to be all depressed and pissed off on the bench, or getting really low, or do you want him to kind of like balance that out with some humor? I don't know.
We want stoic.
I think if the Blues are first in the Central and the camera flashes to Parayko, people are still going to be pissed if they're losing that game. But it's kind of magnified when you've got the issues this team is seeing.
So the one comment he said that I wanted to talk about a little bit was we've stayed patient with the core group of players, and that patience now is at its thinnest point, which this core would be Steen, Pietrangelo, Tarasenko, Bouwmeester, Schwartz. Those are the guys that have been in the longest. Allen. So and there was a Twitter poll, I forgot who put it out. Who's the first to go if someone goes? of the core guys, who's the first to go if somebody goes?
Well, the question is, who doesn't have a no trade clause that Doug Armstrong hands out like candy?
That is a very pertinent point.
Or who gets benched, or who gets healthy scratched, or who faces the wrath first?
I think probably the easiest answer would be Steen, just because he doesn't produce at the level that he was producing when he was given the contract he was given.
He's been better this year, though.
He has been.
He's got 10 points in 16 games.
When he's been in the lineup, he has been a pleasant surprise.
I think I'm very curious to see how, and I doubt it changes too much, to be honest, how Bouwmeester's used. I don't think it's going to change that much. Do you?
I do.
You do? Okay.
I personally think Armstrong's comments that Bill mentioned was specifically Jay Bouwmeester. And I think, I don't know, maybe he's just trying to save face. But we kind of speculated, I think it was last week on our show, who's making that call? Who's saying Jay Bouwmeester has to play? Is the GM who handed him a ridiculous contract? Or is it the head coach who favors veterans?
And defensive coach.
Or the defensive coach. We don't know. So I think we'll see that now. If it's the defensive coach or it's the GM, okay. But I think personally, just judging from that comment from Doug Armstrong, and then judging by what we know about Mike Yeo, I think you're going to see him third pairing at best moving forward, unless there's injury. And I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm fine with them playing him just to play him. But if he's playing more than 14 minutes a night, get the hell out of here. What are you doing? So we'll see. But I truly believe there's going to be a change there.
Yeah, I think the message that if Armstrong's not the kind of guy that communicates directly to his coach to say, why the hell are you still playing Jay Bouwmeester? His comments in the presser today were definitely, don't play Jay Bouwmeester as much as Yeo did.
I would hope that's the case. I hope that's what
I hope you're absolutely right, Jeff. If he isn't the healthy scratch, that he's playing no more than 14 minutes a night
and not killing penalties. Which,
yeah, even last season, I thought, he's still okay on the penalty kill. Not now. He doesn't have it anymore.
In camp out in front of the net and boxing out players is like, he can't do it anymore.
No.
He can't. He never ties up the guy's stick. The guy's stick is always free. The guy always rolls off of him, and he can't find him. He needs to retire. Is what he needs to do. He needs to hang him up. He just doesn't have it.
Yeah, that's something that I had actually mentioned, I think, last week on our show, was some players they can hang with the game, they can adapt, they can change and say, okay, I can play this style of game to remain relevant. And then some guys, the game just passes them up. And unfortunately for Jay Bouwmeester, that happened to him about 3 years ago, and it's only getting worse.
Doug Armstrong said he plans to cast a wide net for the next permanent Blues head coach, saying he'll look at European coaches with NHL experience, and college coaches. So pretty much everyone.
And not that one particular individual who you're referring to.
No, not him. The one who would not be mentioned today during the press conference. The Hockey News had an article today that listed a number of possible replacements for the Blues, the permanent Blues head coaching job. Listed were first and foremost Joel Quenneville, which I think everyone knows that seems to be who the Blues probably would like to have.
Right. And the fan base is already anointed as the only a vast majority of the fan base has anointed as the only option that is acceptable.
Right. Yeah, which is a shame because that's going to be a tough thing to do because the Blues do have to get permission from the Blackhawks
But the Blackhawks have 6 million reasons to give permission.
But the Blackhawks have a lot of money too. And
that doesn't count towards the cap.
Right. So, I mean, they could always assign him a different. Now, I guess they could always assign him to a different position because he's not fired. He was relieved of his coaching duties.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Blues Hat mentioned on Twitter today they could always reassign him to a different position. I guess they could, but he could always say, "Nope, I'm not doing that." So then what happens?
Right. I'll go to the fucking Bears game
Right.
and tailgating and
Yeah.
doing shot skis.
Yeah. He does. The Blues do have to get permission from the Blackhawks if they want to talk to Quenneville. So now the question is, obviously the Blues would show interest, but they would have to then take over that $6 million contract, which is this year and next, which is prorated for this year. It wouldn't be quite $6 million, but next year will be $6 million. And he may want an extension. He may want 2 years after that, at more than $6 million, which that'd be a hard sell for more than $6 million. I think it'd be a pretty ballsy thing for him to do, because he is getting older, and the highest paid coach in the NHL is Babcock at $6.5 million. So I mean, does he want to be the highest paid coach? And then would you make Quenneville the highest paid coach for the Blues, like $7 million a year?
I don't think the Blues can allocate that kind of money there.
I agree with you. But do you think he would ask for it? Do you think he would? I mean, do you think he would demand that and say, "I'm not coaching unless I'm the highest paid coach"? Because if he asks for a raise, that he's going to be the highest paid coach in the NHL.
I don't personally know the man, so I can't really answer that question.
Yeah, I know.
I would hope not, but from a purely economic perspective, why wouldn't you? You're getting paid $6 million to do nothing. You have to lure me into coming into a shitty situation. Why would you not ask for more money?
I think he might price him out of anybody that wants to hire him. The Toronto's got unlimited pockets. They have Babcock. They're not going to. Who has the money to hire him? If he wants to coach again, that's the thing too. Does he want to coach this season? Rumor is that he does. So I mean, if he wants,
East Coast. I mean, there's a lot of teams that would probably have the money to afford him, but a lot of those teams are locked in to what they're paying their guys, and they're not journeying away from that, barring a couple collapses here or there to like Boston or Tampa or somebody.
What about Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh, that's possible.
Pittsburgh is sputtering. They're not happy in Pittsburgh, and a friend of mine at work is a Penguins fan, and he's talked about rumblings that major changes are afoot there.
Bob Rakowski in the YouTube chat posted, how many playoff games equals $6 million? Didn't they say that each playoff game brings in? Why am I thinking $1 million in revenue? That's a lot.
It's
like
close.
A lot.
It's. I thought it was series. Each series brought in like $1.5 million, depending on the round.
So I guess and how many home games you get. Yeah. So I guess if they go to the conference finals, they can make that money back. Ish.
Go to the Stanley Cup Finals and make sure every game goes 7 games.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the way to do it.
Other options are listed in this article: Alain Vigneault, Ricard Gronberg, Sheldon Keefe, which we talked about before, Scott Sandelin, and Dominique Ducharme. Ducharme? How do you pronounce that?
Ducharme.
He's currently the Montreal Canadiens assistant coach.
Is he assistant coach or is he the coach in Laval?
He is currently the assistant coach, according to this article, and he guided the Halifax Mooseheads to the Memorial Cup in 2013. He was named the coach of the year that season at both the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League and the CHL levels, and has since added gold at the Hlinka tournament and the 2018 World Juniors. He's an up-and-comer, this article says, and that could be exactly what the Blues need. So
that would be interesting. It's kind of like when Willie Desjardins first got hired into an NHL job, and he's on his third one, right? Third now? Yeah. He was Dallas and then Vancouver, and now he's behind the bench. I think he's still got the interim tag in LA.
Yes, he does. Their coach in waiting there is Marco Sturm.
Yeah,
he's going to be their next guy. He was the Germany Germany coach.
Yeah, that got Germany a fucking silver medal at the Worlds.
Yeah, so they love him. He's kind of learning under Desjardins, so he's going to be a free agent next year unless he comes back as an assistant coach under Sturm.
So Alain Vigneault, people know, He's been
Right?
around for a while.
Former Blues defenseman for what was it, 81, 82, or 80, 81? I think he was in our lineup.
And then Ricard Kronborg, who you may not know, since Armstrong mentioned European coaches will be mentioned. This guy has long been considered one of the best coaches in the world. His work with the Swedish national team has put him in the spotlight. His name cropped up last summer prior to the New York Rangers filling their coaching vacancy, and it would be no surprise to see it come up again this time around, according to this article. So,
does it say what does he coach a Swedish elite league team, and can we get Pierre to pronounce it for us, please?
it says where is he at? Tom McClellan's on here too.
Is it Frölunda?
Let's see. He's let's see. What does it say? Where is he has some familiarity with the North American game too. He played at the St. Cloud State University in the late 80s and early 90s, later coming on as assistant with the program in 1994-95. He then spent the next 7 seasons plying his trade around the United States, including a spell as an assistant with the WHL Spokane Chiefs in 04-05. Let's see, right? No, doesn't say where he is exactly
Swedish
right now.
national team.
Yeah, I guess that. Okay, that's
Yeah,
what it is.
I guess. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a couple you've heard of and a couple you probably haven't. So, it'll be interesting to see how long it takes and who they get. And Armstrong said he's not going to answer any more questions about how the search is going in any press conference.
Okay, the press conference. He was specific in that. Maybe we'll get him on the show and we'll ask him.
Let's do that. We'll get on that.
I'll get on that.
Jeff, you have an interview that we're gonna I think we're gonna close out this show in a second here. But for the podcasters that listen on the podcast, we're going to tack on an interview that you did. Jeff, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. And for those listening live, just make sure you download the podcast wherever you get your podcast at Google Play, iTunes, or if you want to listen over at letsgobluesradio.com, you can find it there. We're also on Stitcher and Plex and all over the place.
A lot of places, yeah.
Yeah. So
pretty much any podcasting app you have, you can listen.
If you want to come over to my house, we can play it on my computer, and I'll let you listen to it while I sit and stare at you. That'd be fine too. I actually interviewed a friend of the show. We've had him on. If you're a longtime listener of Let's Go Blues Radio, you've heard him before. Jeremy Gover, formerly of Kurt. We said it earlier. What was it? Cell Block 309.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he used to do a podcast and kind of an interesting story on him, but we don't get into it at all. But I'll get a little background. He actually was getting ready to quit the media because he wasn't making any money. He was doing the podcast. Well, then they loved his work with the Nashville Predators, so they asked him if he would be interested in working for them. So he is now works for Nashville Predators Radio Network. He writes for the game Nashville, I want to say .com is the website he writes for, and he does a wonderful job. Again, we've had him on the show multiple times. TheGameNashville.com, that is correct. He's a locker room reporter, talks to the players. He has some insight on the Nashville Predators, and we kind of preview for those that aren't aware and were too caught up in the news today to realize Blues have a home and home coming up with the Nashville Predators tomorrow and on Friday. So we preview that a little bit. We talk about the coaching change, and we talk about the goaltending situation in Nashville. So, again, if you're listening live, make sure you download this episode tomorrow, Wednesday, November 21st, and listen to that interview. It's only about 15, 20 minutes, but that is how we're going to close the show. So, again, I want to thank Jeremy Gover for last minute coming on the show and previewing that series coming up.
So it looks like the Tuesday the 13th prior to the game versus I'm sorry. That is not what I'm that's the wrong notes. So next week maybe we got a post-game show or something on Wednesday night. I don't know. For next show.
It's gonna be dicey. I'm getting back from taking a little vacation at the beginning of the week, and I'll be driving back into town.
Because there's a game Tuesday and Wednesday. Oh, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll have to chat offline about it.
Yep. Okay. So that'll do it for the webcast of this week's episode of Let's Go Blues Radio. For Jeff Ponder and Bill Day, I'm Kurt Price. That will conclude this week's broadcast of Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues.
For Ruby for Prez.
The Chiefs are at home tonight against Cyanosport at the War Memorial at 8. Good seats are still available. I think that went very well.
Thank you for listening to Let's Go Blues Radio. Now take off, hosers.
Well, there's 90 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Sorry.
St. Louis Blues, St. Louis Blues. Have you heard the news about our St. Louis Blues? They've only just begun, they're on their way to number one. Now there's no more blues for our St.